Good evening and welcome. I am Liz Junot, and this is Pat McGlade, and we will be your co-hosts this evening. Please note that you will be muted during the entire program, but we encourage you to add your comments and your questions in the chat feature. We'll have some time for those at the end of the program. Welcome to our Wednesday Wellness at West Side program. Wellness Wednesdays is a ministry of the West Side Presbyterian Church, and we are intended to help all those on a journey toward wellness. We are a collaborative community, learning together, seeking to integrate mind, body, spirit, and will. And we are committed to presenting people, ideas, and practices that benefit the whole person for the whole of life. And that is why we are so honored and excited to bring to you this evening Owen and Micheál O Su. Owen O Su is a singer, composer, leadership advisor. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy and Greek and Roman Civilization and a Master of Arts in Peace and Development Studies. He has worked with some of the most renowned artists, including director Steven Spielberg, actor Russell Crowe, violinist Nigel Kennedy, the Chieftains, and poet David White. In 2018, Owen co-founded The Studio, a business that inspires leadership innovation and cultural change through the experience and inspiration of artistry. In 2020, he established the Edge School, an online community of inquiry and experience, providing virtual workshops and courses with his mother, Noreen, and brother, Molly, who also goes by Micheál. Micheál O Su is a poet, a musician, a creativity consultant, a positive provocateur, which I love. He holds a Bachelor of Music and a Master of Arts in Ethnomusicology. His artistic identity lives on the threshold between things. He is a master of several worlds of music and poetic performance and composition. His way in the world exists between laughter and poignancy, which I'm sure we will see this evening. Micheál comes to us tonight from his home in Limerick, Ireland. Micheál has shared stages and been invited to work with Russell Crowe, Alan Doyle, Samantha Barks, Nigel Kennedy, the Chieftains, Steven Spielberg, Bobby McFerrin, Scott Grimes, Sting, Rhiannon Giddens, and the Buffalo Philharmonic Quartet, to name but a few. Along with their mother, Noreen, they also lead tours in Ireland designed to create community while walking the landscape and encountering the genius of the soul and soil of Ireland. It is on one such tour that our very own Donna Burdick met them and planted the seed for this gathering tonight. So we owe a deep debt of gratitude to our dear Donna. And we hope this evening is just the beginning of a relationship which we hope to continue in person in the beautiful acoustic space of the West Side Presbyterian Church, which is a community dedicated to music in Ridgewood, New Jersey. But without further ado, I am so excited to bring to you Owen and Micheál, and I need to find them on here to spotlight them for you. I'm very excited in one moment to do that for you. So many of you. This is wonderful.
Mute everybody. Yeah, we need to mute everybody.
Yes. Okay.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Okay, hold on.
Sending you my very best here from the banks of the River Shannon. It's great to have my brother in tow to share this evening with you. So it's great to Great to meet your wonderful community, and congratulations for gathering together for a year. One thing that has become tradition for us to do when we meet new friends and old, when we gather online, is to light a candle here where we are, to invite your energy into ours and to spark that sense of imagination, creativity, and courage that we need to be present. So I'm going to light that little candle here in Ireland to represent all of your beaming faces, and indeed to illuminate mine, to light a fire. And I'm going to sing a verse of St. Patrick's invocative protective prayer in the Irish language. One verse, and then my brother will sing a verse of it as well. It's called St. Patrick's breastplate, or St. Patrick's armor. We'll dedicate it to our time together. I'd like to follow it with a poem I wrote recently, inspired by the lyrics of Patrick's prayer. Christ Leum, Christ Rom, Christum ig, Christos mechansa, Agus Christ fum. Christ in agoni mocrische, Christ fosoiastium, Christ oud. On tyrnatic slanu, on tyrnatic slanu. Gorev the law nu ahirna in our mask gosail na say. Christ leum, Christ rom, Christum mig, Christos mechionsa, Agus Christ fun. Christin aconi ama Christia, Christ fosuiastium, Christoig, on tyrnatic slanu, on tyrnatic slanu, Gorev the lanu ahirna in our mask gosail na sail. St. Patrick's Day 2021. I turn up today through a simple power of stillness, the humble force of witness, a faith in the passing storm. I turn up with lightness of deer at dawn, the protection of no expectation, with a sense of God so powerful she gifts me with a deep river of doubt and the hydroelectricity of faith. I arise today through the power of family and giddy laughter and the frozen, beautiful stare of my cat. Today I harness a willingness to unleash invocation, the humility and imagination of manifestation, the power of a cyclone of love. I bind unto me the power of seeing you and hearing me, and the impossible power of aspiration. I arise today through power of language, the power of physical pride, infinite hope, prayerful presence, the shelter of music. Today and every day I arise to meet myself so that I may be protected by others who give me impregnable defenses of gratitude. Today and every day I arise to meet myself so that we may be protected by the power of others who give us impregnable defenses of gratitude.
Lovely. Thank you, Michal, over there. Lovely to be here, everyone. Celebrating the power of St. Patrick. We're just off 2 days of another virtual workshop on St. Patrick. So we're Patricked out. If there was any more patrician energy here, I don't know what, we'd explode. So this is a lovely little coda to the last few days for us. We're very grateful to be here. To Donna, thank you so much for inviting us, and to everyone there in the community. It's extraordinary to be able to share this. And I was only sharing with my mother there a few hours ago, and we were talking about how even still, what we've learned over the past few days and experienced about St. Patrick, our knowledge of the symbol, the wisdom, the learning that he has to teach us has deepened in an extraordinary way. And so I was thinking, how are we going to be able to express that in this little hour? I've no idea how we're going to do it, but we're definitely going to try. And what you heard there's an extraordinary thing about St. Patrick, and this is the thing. Of course, his day, St. Patrick's Day, which is March 17th in Ireland, is a very special time because it's the time when the buds start to burst, and when you hear the birds singing in the trees, and you'll hear the first bee perhaps of the season. And everything is greening and bursting forth, and it is driven, and it is full of life's force and energy. And there's the great quote by Angus Heaney who says, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk to blossom." So there was a day when the risk to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk to blossom. So this is about the risk to blossom. And St. Patrick, you see, represents this energy perfectly. That's what he has to teach us. He has to teach us that we must go forth and follow the voice in our dreams. But we don't do this with willful abandon. You go out, you follow the voice in your dream, and you follow that voice with a certain protection, with an insurance policy. And what we sung you at the start, that was St. Patrick's insurance policy, also known as St. Patrick's breastplate. And a breastplate in medieval Europe was your coat of armor that you wore over yourself. But St. Patrick's coat of armor was something far more sophisticated than a piece of metal. St. Patrick's armor actually came out of the Celtic tradition, and out of nearly every native tradition actually in the world has this, which is a blessing, an invocation of protection from the directions. And there's not only the 4 cardinal directions, but there's above you and below you and within your own soul. And we know that these are the words of St. Patrick because St. Patrick wrote his own confession, his own autobiography, in his own hand. So this has come down to us from the saint himself 1500 years ago. And I'll give you a quick go of St. Patrick's breastplate. It's longer than this, but some of it, and Mihall's beautiful poem, which he just wrote yesterday, was inspired by St. Patrick's breastplate there. And St. Patrick says, I arise today through the strength of heaven, the light of the sun, the radiance of the moon, the splendor of fire, the speed of lightning, the swiftness of winds, the depth of the sea, the stability of the earth, the firmness of rock. I arise today through God's strength to pilot me. So we have the invocation of the four elements: earth, air, wind, water. Earth, air, water, and fire. And then he closes with this great closing prayer. He says, Christ, be with me, before me, behind me, within me, beneath me, above me, at my right, at my left. Christ be in every heart of who thinks of me, in the mouth of everyone who speaks of me, and in the eye of everyone that sees me, and in the ear of everyone who hears me. So that's St. Patrick's breastplate. So you can hear this power, you know. And one of the great words that comes down that's associated with St. Patrick is this word neart. And neart is the Irish word for this unstoppable force, the force that through the green fuse fires the flower, as Dylan Thomas said. And this force, neart, is an old Celtic concept. And we have in Irish the phrase, Ní neart go carla céile. Ní neart go carla céile. There's no neart unless we are together in community. It is only in community that we find the power to go out and take these risks. So I'm going to sing another song for you, which is a wonderful song of following of dreams. And this is the time to burst forth and to follow the voice in your dreams. Patrick is the man for this job. And we know he is because in his own autobiography, he followed his dreams extremely closely. He actually had 7 big dreams. But I'll quickly give you a little bit of his biography. He was from England. St. Patrick was an Englishman. And he was captured by pirates. And we know all this from his own pen. And we know it's true because he's a saint. And he was captured by Irish pirates and he was brought as a slave to Northern Ireland. And for 7 years, he lived on a hillside. And then one night, he had a dream. And the voice in the dream, the voice of God, told him to go south. He had to walk all the way through the island of Ireland, a hostile nation. And he was told there at the south of the country, there would be a boat waiting to take him home. So off he went and had all sorts of trials and tribulations. And there was the boat. And he got on the boat and it took him home, where he returned. He's very comfortable. He was from a sort of a wealthy Roman British family. And then many years later, another voice came to him and it said, go back to Ireland. Patrick, you have to go back to Ireland. And Patrick, what did he do? He got up, he told his family, he told his friends, I'm going back. And off he went. Imagine what his family and friends would have said with this harebrained scheme, you know. And off he went to bring the message, the Christian message, the message of the incarnated divinity and the Trinity, the mystery of the Trinity, back to Ireland, which is symbolized in the shamrock. So one of the great things we can learn from Patrick is following those dreams. And in Celtic mythology, the god of the dream world, the god that lights the fire in your soul, that stokes the yearning within you, the yearning for creativity and for love and for joy, is the god of Angus. And our national poet William Butler Yeats has an extraordinary ode to the god Angus. It's called The Song of Wandering Angus. And I'm going to give you a blast of that now, a lovely version that we learned from our mother. And yeah, so I'll give you a blast of that and hand you over to Nora. So. I went out to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand, and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing, and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped a berry in a stream and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire flame, but something rustled on the floor, and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran, and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone, and kiss her lips and take her hands, and walk among long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done. The silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun, the silver apples of the moon. The golden apples of the sun.
That's lovely, Owen. Fair play to you. But 'tis me should be howling at the moon, Owen, because it's almost midnight here in Ireland, which means that it's almost tomorrow. So I'll either turn into a pumpkin or a potato, probably next year. That's a beautiful poem by W.B. Yeats. And maybe Liz will send along an email after with some of the poems that we include and songs that we include in this very short presentation. And thanks for reciting St. Patrick's Prayer there, that power of invocation. Before I read a great patrician prayer of interfaith, I wanted to actually tell you something about how that prayer appeared actually in a hymnal, a book in Ireland in the 11th century actually. So by the 7th century, St. Patrick was well regarded as the patron saint of Ireland. And he arrived there in the 5th century, so it took around 200 years for him to become the headline act. And in the 11th century, that poem of invocation, of protection of the natural world, which is so a powerful tool for us to reimagine here, it was actually called An Fe Fiada. Now the Fe Fiada in Ireland is actually a pre-Christian mythological power that was attributed to our heroes. A power for, we had a kind of a Herculean figure called Fionn McCool, and he had a group of lads that used to follow him around, a group of warriors called the Fianna, and they were capable in times of crisis to turn sideways into the light, if you will, and become protected or invisible part of the natural world. So Patrick's invocation, which is part of a history of saintly prayers of invocation actually from the Ireland and Scotland, was attributed to St. Patrick's Fe Fiada. So even in the 11th century, the theologians were ascribing or inferring Patrick with this pre-Christian mythological power actually. They were attributing the same thing. So that sense of crossover was even present, it seems, with the theologians after 1,000 years, which is beautiful, because Patrick, when he arrived in Ireland, obviously was aware of an interfaith melange as well. And I think as a society we're entering into a brotherhood and a sisterhood of an interfaith ministry within all of our respective angles on the power of God. And of course that was made very real in our lives when our mother became an interfaith minister actually around 4 years ago with the One Spirit Interfaith Seminary in London. And she's been blessing people up and down Ireland ever since, and it's been great fun. And she had to postpone and dismantle a lot of her plans like the rest of us this year. But how I've been describing this year actually is a year of dismantling actually. So I found that to be a powerful word against so much of the paralysis that has been enforced on us. Dismantling is what we've been doing, not postponing, not cancelling, simply dismantling in order to remantle it. So we hope you can, I hope we can sing with our mother too in your beautiful church there in Ridgewood at some stage in the future. Sometimes we act as our mother's roadies and carry her bags while she sings with us. And we learned a lot of our songs from her actually. And one of the themes of this evening is inheritance as well. And let those who have eyes to see and ears to hear what we inherit. We only can articulate what we inherit. We have to see it first in order to receive what is handed on, which is very hard work, whether it's good or bad. But I have another mother actually, which is much closer to you there in Ridgewood, because I married a girl from Fairlawn, New Jersey, which is not very far away from Ridgewood there. And she's obviously the most beautiful woman in the world, but her mother is Hindu actually, so she's also Hindu. And when I first visited her family home in Fairlawn, New Jersey, there just by the high school, I noticed the easy and intimate relationship with prayer that both her mother and father had actually. Their home altar upstairs, and how they would go and pray each day, take a shower and pray each morning in front of this beautiful, ornate, but informal altar tucked away in one of the upstairs rooms. And me, of course, coming from a family on the outskirts of a couple of different liturgical streams and monastic communities, how me and my brother never fell into wearing a robe or a habit of some sort. I think we were born 50 years too late, but here we are with you all there in Ridgewood on St. Patrick's Day. But me coming from a sensibility of religious community, I had the gumption I think I was a prospective son-in-law even, actually, maybe I was, to ask, can I come and pray with you? Actually, will you bring me up to your altar now one of these days that I'm here, and can I pray with you? And she said, she was kind of like, all right, all right. So the first day passed, and there was no invitation, and I didn't even realize that you had to take a shower before the Hindu prayers of puja. And second day passed, and there was no tension in the air or anything, but I was wondering when I was ready, And then the third day, then she gave me the nod after breakfast. You take a shower there, I'll see you upstairs. So I was, right, we're on the boards, as they say. And I went up and I sat down cross-legged, and she came in and she sat down, she closed the door, and she sat there now, and she said, turned around, she goes, this is my prayer room. No one comes in. And then she turned around and off we went. And it was a beautiful, beautiful 15, 20 minutes maybe. And a new experience for me, a new ritual experience. And this was not a lamentable thing she was saying, that no one comes into her prayer room. Actually, it was quite a good thing, it seemed. There was undertones of gratitude for the kind of sense of aloneness that we're all craving on some level, that we've had a bit too much of this year. But I wrote this kind of a sense of physical belonging in this new faith space. So I'd like to dedicate this to Ridgewood and Fairlawn, my beautiful wife and her amazing mom and dad. It's called This Is My Prayer Room, and it's for Maya. This is my prayer room. No one comes in. I anoint icons here with sandalwood and pour milk over deities chanting my throaty mantra. I sat cross-legged till I could no more, but don't worry, my God already knows my aches and pains. This altar holds my trinkets of faith, the tools of prayer, instruments of hope, and rag offerings to my elephant God. If you wish to pray, I'll let you, turning halfway through my rosary, making sure you're comfortable, for Tuesday's prayers are slightly longer, you see. The incense will rise for you and I, for there is peace in worship at the foot of a Virgin Mother and a blue-skinned baby, the gurus and martyrs, the saints and angels. And when I hand you the bell, ring it, not once, but keep ringing till I tell you. Pray with me, say the words, ring the bell, we're almost there. This part is my favorite. It's where God feels the closest, so ask for mercy or for help or forgiveness. No need to tell, for my story is your story, is everybody's story. The incense will rise for you and I, for there is peace in worship at the foot of a Virgin Mother and a blue-skinned baby, the gurus and martyrs, the saints and angels. And when I hand you the bell, ring it not once, but keep ringing till I tell you. Pray with me, say the words, ring the bell, we're almost there. This part is my favorite. It's where God feels the closest. So ask for mercy or for help or forgiveness. No need to tell, for my story is your story, is everybody's story. And let the bell stop ringing now. We've prayed well today. Thank you for your silence. I know my God is pleased to meet you, sees your sad eyes and sweet spirit, and knows you have much more to do. And let that bell stop ringing now. We've prayed well today. Thanks for your silence. I know my God is pleased to meet you, sees your sad half-moon eyes and sweet spirit, and knows we have much more to do. And what a wonderful prayer room of openness you've all created this year. It's amazing. Online community right there. So I've passed through Ridgewood on the way to the, there's a very boho Ben and Jerry's actually spot on there in Ridgewood, New Jersey. I'll have to
Oh,
take
really?
Yeah, I'll have to take you there sometime.
Oh my goodness.
The
I know
fanciest
it.
Ben and Jerry's in the area, actually.
Really?
Yeah, it is. It is. But I was actually struck. I wanted to share something as a bookmark. I use. My wife actually designed this. Actually, our dad passed away about 2.5 years ago. This is his mass card. There he is, right there. And I use him as my bookmark. He would be very happy. And when I was thinking about this prayer room that you all have created, that we're breezing on into, I was struck by the quote that our father was lucky enough to design his own funeral meticulously. He was a great musician, a composer, and a great academic. And he wanted the quote from Rainer Maria Rilkes, the Sonnets to Orpheus, actually. And I'm always struck when communities come together in communities of inquiry and listening that this quote often comes to me. So Rilke says, "And where there had been at most a makeshift hut to receive the music, a shelter nailed up out of their darkest longing, with an entryway that shuddered in the wind, you built a temple deep inside their hearing." And where there had been at most a makeshift hut to receive the music, a shelter nailed up out of their darkest longing, with an entryway that shuddered in the wind, you built a temple deep inside their hearing. We can visit that temple anytime, isn't it? But thanks for letting me share that nod to the Hindu gods there. You know, Patrick would be proud of me.
Wonderful. Mighty stuff. Yeah. Beautiful, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of I just see our time is flying. It's flying by. Oh yeah, if anyone has any questions too, feel free to ask in the chat, and Liz and Pat might keep an eye on those for later too, so feel free. AMA, isn't that what they say?
I don't know what that means.
Ask me anything.
Okay,
AMA.
perfect.
That's what the kids call it. And well, one of those great temples, those spaces, there's an extraordinary pilgrimage site in Ireland, which is known as St. Patrick's Purgatory. And St. Patrick's Purgatory has been a place of pilgrimage for hundreds and hundreds of years, perhaps even thousands of years. Again, these sites are often layered with religious and spiritual stories. So St. Patrick's Purgatory is in Northern Ireland on a little lake. There's a little island, and in the island there's a little cave, and the cave is called St. Patrick's Purgatory. And for those traditional theologians amongst us, you'll know Purgatory was a place, a sort of a waiting room for bold boys and girls before you got straight up, before you took the express train right up to the gates of heaven. And again, this is the image of, you would go to this pilgrimage site, and people from all over Western Europe, all over the ancient world, came to this place. And on all the ancient maps in Ireland, St. Patrick's Purgatory was, you could see it marked. So it was this site, and it was a site of great indulgence, where the Pope would say that if you did all of the rituals that were required of you on the island, that you could skip the line and get into heaven a lot quicker than the rest of the suckers back home. So it was a great site of pilgrimage, and people came from all over the place in order to access that power, that driving force that would push you over the edge, you know. So our other great national poet, Seamus Heaney, went there as a young man, as he was crossing over a threshold and taking on the identity of Ireland's national poet. And it was in the context of the Civil War in Northern Ireland. And Heaney felt this extraordinary wind in his sails, and he decided he'd go to St. Patrick's Purgatory and undergo the rituals that were prescribed there. And so in St. Patrick's Purgatory, you take the boat out, and you take your shoes off, and you stay on the island, and you fast, and you don't sleep, and you have to walk around these stone beds and say the prayers in just the right way. And if you do it all just perfect, you get the stamp of approval, and off you go back to the mainland into your new dispensation. So Heaney, of course, wrote a whole series of extraordinary poems on his experience there on St. Patrick's Purgatory, which is also known as Station Island. And Heaney gathered the collection of poetry together and called the collection Station Island. And there's a beautiful poem, the last in that series, which is the 12th poem. And Heaney is going back. He's leaving this prayer room, this temple of imagination, and he's going back to the real world, you know, to his real life. And he's as he gets off the ferry, a hand comes down from the dock to help him ashore, and this figure walks by him to the parking lot. And as he's walking back to his car, he realizes he's being accompanied by the ghost of James Joyce, who's bringing him back, you know, to the real world. And Joyce, of course, has the spectacles and the hat and the cane. And as he's approaching the parking lot, Joyce takes his cane and he smacks a garbage can. And he gives Heaney this admonition. And I always find that this is just such a sophisticated, perfect description of the energy that Patrick is admonishing us to and telling us to go forth. He's driving out the snakes, you know, he's banishing those forces of restriction that may be around us, and he's telling us, and this is what and this force is coming through James Joyce to Heaney. And I'll give you an old blash to that, and then maybe we might hear from you all. So he takes out his cane, smacks it off the garbage pail, and he says, "Your obligation is not discharged by any common right. What you must do must be done on your own. So get back in harness. The main thing is to write for the joy of it. Cultivate a work lust, imagining its haven like your hands at night, dreaming the sun in the sunspot of a breast. You are fasted now, lightheaded and dangerous. Take off from here and don't be so earnest. Let others wear the sackcloth and the ashes. Let go, let fly, forget. You've listened long enough, now strike your note. And when they make the circle wide, it's time for you to swim out on your own and filling the element with signatures on your own frequency, echo soundings, searches, probes, allurements, elver gleams in the whole of the dark sea. So get back in harness. The main thing is to write for the joy of it. Cultivate a work lust, imagining its freedom, imagining its haven like your hands at night dreaming the sun in the sunspot of a breast. You are fasted now, lightheaded, dangerous, so take off from here. Don't be so earnest. Let others wear the sackcloth and the ashes. Let go, let fly, forget. You've listened long enough. Strike your note, and when they make the circle wide, it's time for you to swim out on your own, filling the element with signatures on your own frequencies, echo soundings, searches, probes, allurements, elver gleams in the whole of the dark sea." So just in case there was any reticence or holding back there, that's
great.
the end of that, yeah.
I think I've met James Joyce a few times myself, actually.
After, especially on St. Patrick's night,
I
walking.
remember the trash can. I don't remember much else, but
If there's someone smacking a trash can, I'd say, all right, was there?
it was. I haven't gotten a chance to sing this on St. Patrick's Day, and it's an amazing song that has hands across the ocean and has woven its way into the genetic makeup of our grieving traditions. But it's a very, very uplifting and beautiful song, and I'll sing it for you now. Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountain side. The summer's gone and all the flowers are dying. 'Tis you must go and I must bide. But come you back when summer's in the meadow, and all the valleys hushed and white with snow. 'Tis I'll be here in sunshine or in shadow. Oh Danny boy, I love you so. And when you come and all the flowers are dying, and I am dead, as dead I well may be, you'll come and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me. And I will hear the soft you tread above me, and all my grave will warm and sweeter be. And then you'll kneel and you'll whisper that you love me. Oh Danny boy, I love you so.
Mighty. Lovely stuff.
Well, we're nearly coming to our question time, Owen, but there's a great old song from Limerick that people might know as well, actually. A song of parting and of togetherness. And it's a great song of knowing when to make your exit as well, which isn't a great Irish intelligence. But there is a wisdom in it. Will you take the second verse, Owen, if I sing the first one?
Or will we do it at the end? Will we take the questions
Oh,
first
yeah.
and sing that to close?
I'm gone out of focus. Hold on.
Out of focus. Do you know actually the Irish goodbye? Have you heard of that?
Does it look like this?
It kind of looks a bit like that. It's
Maybe if I
funny
sing
'cause
that out.
in the US, the Irish goodbye is when you just disappear. But in Ireland, an Irish goodbye is like it takes you an hour to say goodbye. Like Irish people, when they say goodbye, they go around to everyone and say goodbye. Like it's the opposite of what it means in America. So anyway, the Irish emigrated to America and got very efficient and just headed out the door. But yeah, we wanted to see if anyone out there had any questions for us at all. We'd be very happy to pretend that we know all the answers.
And to meet new people too, yeah. That's why we're here. It's great.
So actually somebody's asking, I love that you do this, but is there another reason why you recite your poems twice?
Good question. Well, there's a great
few reasons.
great Celtic tradition of apprenticeship, isn't there? Of being, of taking up apprenticeship fosterage. And one great poet and speaker and reciter of poetry that we are deeply influenced by, apart from our parents and a few others, is the poet David White, an Englishman with an Irish mother who now lives in the Pacific Northwest. He's famous for reciting his poetry twice. So we first met him in Ireland around 13 years ago now. And I suppose, had that amazing experience of meeting the person before you see them perform on stage, which always has a different jarring effect, actually, when you see the kind of schizophrenia involved, the virtuosity. The word virtuosic is a beautiful word that we're all entitled to as well. So, and his use of repetition actually kind of comes across as mantric and invocative and very powerful. So we've been apprenticing ourselves to deepening the narrative in around what we've learned from David White and our mother. So,
and we're very used to in the singing tradition. We're very used to a singer repeating a chorus, but we're not used to a poet actually repeating the lines of poetry. But it has the same effect, because there are poems that I've recited 100, 200, 300 times, and every time a word will jump out at me. So in this very short period of time, to hear the poem once and then to hear it twice, perhaps something kind of settles. And when I'm reciting it, actually, the second time around, a different energy will come into me to emphasize the poem in a different way. And of course, a different poem should have an infinite amount of nuance in it. So that's that's another one of the reasons. But yeah, David, of course, was the master of that we have.
Is the master, yeah, he's still alive and kicking.
Jesus, he is. There's no stopping him.
Also, yeah, we're musicians, so we're improvisers as well. Very short attention spans, and it's great crack, we say here in Ireland, to repeat things. And if you're committing things to memory yourself at the moment, don't be afraid to give it a blast the second time around. People love it because they enter into a space, and poems are often too short. So.
Yeah.
So we have one other St. Patrick's question about how did St. Patrick drive out the snakes, and how bad was the infestation in what part of Ireland?
He had this huge stick, and they were everywhere. They were hanging off the trees. There was a carpet of snakes from coast to coast, and he got a big stick, but of course, we all know here, of course, that the snake is a metaphor, you see, like everything we've been talking about. So, and it's a very complex metaphor, the snake. It's not very simple at all. And it means many things in many different traditions. But there was never a snake in Ireland. It's far too inclement, far too cold and wet for any self-respecting snake to be caught dead in Ireland. But of course, it represents something. So there is something that, and Patrick never mentioned that. That was attributed to him afterwards too. Perhaps by an institution that didn't like other people who associated their own beliefs with snakes. So it gets very complicated. And
okay,
yeah.
And I'm flagging this question because I know what the answer is. Somebody is asking about your do you know John O'Donoghue? And I know that you've had a history with him prior to his passing. Would you care to share just a little of that?
Yeah. Sure, yeah. Our mother was a great friend of his, actually. Yeah, so he's another great. Yeah.
Did you work with him at all?
Or? We never got to work with him. We did an album in Glenstall, actually, that our mother produced, and she invited him to recite some poetry. So we got to hang out with him for a day in Glenstall. Yeah. And so an amazing, extraordinary soul. Yeah.
So I know it's interesting. Is there a general sense of why there is so much artistry and poetry and music that comes out of your lovely green Ireland?
Well, we touched on something bittersweet last night, Owen, about creativity in Ireland, and why some of our most extreme geniuses were pushed to the most extremes of tradition and innovation. And I think it's because everybody in Ireland, not everybody, there's a culture of when you see something extraordinary, to give your own opinion, your honest opinion. And sometimes that comes across
right between the eyes as well. Yeah. That's how they give it to you here in Ireland.
So you could do anything virtuosic, and someone would say, yeah, but that's the bit I would change.
Yeah,
that gives rise to a person who stops caring what people think because they always hear negative things. That's my theory, anyway.
Well, it's extraordinary because, I mean, it's such a small place. It's hard for the American imagination to think of a country so small. And the population, there's 4.5 million people on the island, and yet it keeps producing, novelists, poets, musicians. It's extraordinary. And people in sciences, people in engineering, in business. I mean, there's just this extraordinary energy in the place. And personally, I believe a lot of it is based upon the genius loci, the spirit of the place, which I believe is sort of laying upon the geography. And Ireland is a little island in the North Atlantic, and it's way up north by the panhandle of Alaska. But it stays green almost all year round because of a current from the Gulf of Mexico that comes and brushes off Ireland's Atlantic west. So you have this temperate, lush climate. It's like a cold tropic here. And so the cows, you can keep livestock out all year round. There's just extraordinary abundance in the land. And I think that sort of creates a sort of an energy. You feel it. There's an electricity almost when you land in the country. It's wet and it's fertile and it's full of it sort of makes you want to cry and produce this creativity. So I think it comes out of a geography.
Very changeable too, because we're in the middle of the Atlantic. The weather changes every 5 minutes, in that sense of security of being held and insecurity of the weather kind of cracks you open a little bit, makes you a bit manic, which can be good for the creative arts, as many of you out there know. And but also the weather can't kill you in Ireland, whereas it can over there. You can fall asleep in a ditch anywhere in Ireland, and you'll most likely wake up in the morning.
You certainly will. And we have someone's radio there in the background. So yes, was there anything else? Yeah, we might.
There's some really terrific questions, and I don't know. We want to let you finish with song, but there is just one here that I want to ask, because there seems to be, from the person who's asking this, has heard this in your presentation, a more grounded and spacious understanding of and articulation of masculinity in Ireland than in the States. Do you have a sense of that? And it might be able to answer because you're living in both places.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus, it's so complicated, but very perceptive, I would say. Yeah, really perceptive. And we're fascinated in, gender identity and how that changes over history and in different cultures, how it's perceived differently. I think a fascinating thing about gender and spirituality that the moniker Celtic has, specifically for the Western European or the North American mind, is that Celticism takes this part of our mind that is the poetic part of our mind, the feminine part of the mind, and often when people talk about Celtic, we're kind of referring to that actually in many ways. But specifically, the Celts were very close to the goddess energy. Their theology was very rooted in the power, the generative and creative power of the feminine. Very, very powerful. So it was leaning in that direction, whereas of course the Western European, North American, our gods became very masculine, in the last sort of number of centuries. So that idea of Celticism, I think, unlocks that part of ourselves that yearns for a redress of perhaps an imbalance in much of our contemporary modern world today, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that sense of enlightened masculinity may be also mistaken for other things like shyness. We get very shy, I think, and very self-deprecating. So I think, we all, Irish lads love their mammies, and women are venerated here, and we get shy around them. And I think that's why many of the fashion magazines list Irish men as some of the most the sexiest top 5. Ireland always makes the top 5, and it's a mystery to me.
They're just awkward, really.
I think it's really, we're awkward, and we talk because we don't know how to close the deal. Anyway, that's a different seminar. It's a different seminar.
Which presents as a kind of a mystique,
Well, on that note, we will leave you to your awkwardness, and we would love for you to. We thank you for your generosity in answering our questions.
We want to come speak to you guys.
In another fit of generous exuberance, we were just saying that, look, we'd love you guys, if anyone's interested, to learn some more, because we've only touched on a tiny little iceberg of St. Patrick, the little tip of it. But the last 2 days we presented with our mother on this course. So if you go to that link and put in the coupon code Westside, you can access those 2 days for free in the vault. And just because you guys, we're so grateful for a place to be able to share this, that doesn't involve green wigs or beer.
And beer.
So and so spread the word that you now know a little bit about the secret of Patrick, and please you can be introduced to our mother there, and we look forward one day perhaps to meeting you and singing with you all there together. Yeah.
And Liz, we'll send you, the text of that poem I recited and the Rilke quote. And
Is that in here, or that's the new?
That's in my little poetry book, yeah. And
Okay.
and there's a couple of other things.
I did send out the information to everybody ahead of time, but let's go ahead and we'll do that again afterwards
so
as
much.
well. And we put in your website, so hopefully people will know.
Thanks so much.
Great, and thank you all very much. Good evening, and thank you.
You're
Yeah.
going
Great
to
old
leave us
song.
with a
Yeah,
We
it's a
will.
great old
Oh,
song that
we
was
will indeed.
collected in Limerick City in 1904 by a man called John Carr, and it was made famous by many, many Irish artists, most notably Clancy Brothers. And it's called The Parting Glass. And it goes, of all the money e'er I spent it in good company. And of all the harm I've ever done, alas, it was to none but me. And all that I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night, and a joy be to you all.
If I had money enough to spend and leisure time to sit a while, there is a fair maid in Limerick town, and she truly has my heart beguiled. Her rosy cheeks and ruby lips, I wot she has my heart in thrall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night, and joy be to you all.
Of all the comrades ere I had, they are sorry for my going away. And of all the sweethearts that ere I loved, they'd wish me one more day to stay. But since it falls into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. We'll gently rise and softly call. I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night, and a joy be to you all.
Lovely.
Thank you so much. And to our community, we send you on your way and wish you our blessing that you be well. Go in peace. And thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you so
We
much.
look forward to our paths crossing again.
Good job.
And I'm sure there's a beautiful way to say that in Gaelic, which I don't know.
I see it in the
Tune
chat
in.
there. Gurf míle maith agah go léir slán that, yeah.
Ah, there we go. God bless. Have a wonderful night.